Welcome to Inspiring Possible. I'm Christy Pennison, former stuck person turned therapist and dream consultant. Are you feeling stuck, overwhelmed, uncertain, or just need a little inspiration? Then I want to help you gain the clarity, confidence, and courage to create possibilities and live a life you love. Because, folks, life's too short to be miserable. Hello, Inspiring Possible people. It's so good to have you back listening today. Man, we are almost, or we are halfway through the year, which I cannot believe it. It seems like time just keeps on moving at a faster, and faster pace. And if you agree with that, hang on, because we have a really good guest that's gonna help you if you're feeling like life is speeding by at the speed of light and you are hustling all through your day and never have time to think. Okay, this episode is for you. But I have a special guest who herself maybe felt stuck and disillusioned with life, and she knew she needed a change. And investing in her own development really led her to some real big life revelations that I think helped her be able to shift her own mindset and discover her authentic self to be able to embrace peace and joy. And if peace and joy sounds like something you would like more of in your life, again, you came to the right place. So I'm super excited to welcome Karen Bartholomew, founder of the Pause Method, to the Inspiring Possible show today. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you so much for having me, Christy. It's a pleasure. I'm excited to share the message.
Yes, well, I'm excited to hear the message because I feel like even for myself, I can't hear this enough about the pause, the stillness. And as someone who is likes to hustle from time to time or likes to be active in doing things, it sometimes is a struggle for me to really sit in stillness and to be able to reflect more in life and really gain clarity. But every time I do it, I
Yeah.
always feel very grateful for it because it does help me not just go in a million directions at once, but really have clarity for where I want to go next. So I'm curious, what helped you come to create this methodology and how has it been helpful in your own life?
Yeah. So I think back in 2010, I just got to a point in my life. I was a single mom. I had a newborn and a 4 year old and a 9 year old. And I literally I was so exhausted just doing so much, saying yes to everything. I ended up being a single mom at that time. And I just got really sick of life itself. And I got sick of me just doing the same old, same old, same old, picking the wrong people, attracting the wrong people in my life. And so somebody had asked me about taking this class, and I just literally jumped on it because I'm like, I got to do something. I don't know what it is, but I got to do something. And so I took this 3 day class that I really was able to get some awareness of how I was playing life. And it was mind boggling. But it was so rewarding and such a first step for me that I took that on to take that awareness on physically and mentally, and then into effective and ineffective leadership, such that, I became a coach for that organization. And I found myself just coaching people in personal development. But I also have been in mortgage for 20 years, and so I was a sales coach for mortgage as well. But what I found was both industries, they weren't doing some of the same in each. Sales was missing, and personal development wasn't in the sales, and then sales wasn't in the personal development all the time. And so I really wanted to do something and make an impact. And when I realized what I was doing in the framework that I was doing in a way, from taking a pause, I'm like, I got to put this together and put it in a framework where I can help other women like get unstuck and get some stillness and know that there's a better way than being exhausted and doing everything and carrying all the weight of the world and like never having enough time just to feel and be a little selfish for ourselves to put our own oxygen masks on first before we go and help others. Because we come from such a different version of ourselves that's so much better, and more free when we can really tap into that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, I don't know about you, but I've been in both spaces. And sometimes I'll teeter back
Yep.
towards the, overwhelmed side of things. And then I have to be able to say, oh, I know even with me knowing some things, it's still the knowing and the doing is two different things, right?
Oh,
And the
yeah. Yeah.
intentionality behind the thing.
Yeah, I just got stuck the other day, got questioning myself, and I'm like, "Oh, this is just having a bad day," but I allowed myself to feel what I was feeling and then take some action to get out of it, right? And now I
Yeah.
can do it so much quicker. So, yeah, it's just, taking a pause, even if it's just I remember my first pause was walking to the mailbox to get the mail because I just needed a moment of peace just to be outside and just breathe and enjoy the nature and just take a break. Right. So, I mean, that was the first way that I took a pause. Right. But really, you talk about stillness, stillness is radical because it interrupts the programming. When you be still, all the messages and all the programming that we have as young children that we've brought forward and the things that aren't working for us, especially those of us that are in leadership, we're conditioned to believe that our worth is tied to some output, right? To proving or achieving, but the pause method was born out of my own exhaustion, basically. I realized that, sprinting through life the way that I was doing everything for everyone, never saying no, trying to meet everybody's needs, right? While silently, I just was disconnecting from my own truth of what really fulfilled me, and brought me pure joy in my life and peace. So pausing just allows us to hear ourselves again, really. It just gives us a moment to go, what do I need in this moment to get me through the next hour? Some women need to just get through the next 30 minutes, right? So it's not about doing less. It's about really being more aligned of what you truly want in your life. And a lot of us don't even know what we want. And so,
Yeah.
my coaching is basically asking the right questions so we can unravel that. So we really talk about the real stuff and unravel it, basically. Because when a woman learns to pause, she becomes really dangerous in the best way. She's no longer reacting, she's responding, and she's really leading with clarity.
Well, let's talk about it. Let's dive in if you don't mind. Tell us a little bit more about kind of what the pause method is and how people can use it.
Yeah. So the pause method, I just did an acronym with all the letters and pause basically, and I can just walk you through it. It's also on my website. The P stands for perceive and pattern recognition. What happens is in our subconscious, we don't realize that we're running on autopilot lots of the time. Most of us remember when we started driving, right? And we were like looking in the rearview mirror and we were looking in the side mirrors and we are trying to, I learned on a clutch. So it's a little different for people that are younger than
That's
me.
what I learned on too, actually,
Oh,
and I
you do?
drove a clutch for years. Yes,
Yeah.
for years. Yes.
So did my dad. I didn't wanna kill my dad. I didn't wanna go through a stop sign. I didn't wanna hurt the car, right? I didn't wanna hurt myself, right? So all these things we're thinking about and, like, we're just so scared to even move the car more than, like, 2 miles an hour. And now we think about it and we can end up in our driveway and we don't even know how we got there, right? I mean, like, I don't
Yeah,
remember
I've totally
driving.
driven places and not known how I got there and went to the wrong place that I was
Yeah.
not supposed to be going based off of
That
just muscle memory and not thinking. Yeah.
Right. Well, that is what your subconscious patterns are, right? Your patterns that we live with because now it's almost like eating, right? And when we first learned how to eat, we're like, food's everywhere, spaghetti's all over the place. And we would know, not even thinking, we're like, we put it to our mouth, right? Same thing, brush our teeth. We just know what we're doing. But really, like identifying what those patterns are, those subconscious beliefs, or default reactions that shape our current experience, right? And so, really, the question to ask yourself is what story am I telling myself right now? Is it rooted in truth today, or is it rooted in past conditioning that you're bringing forward that really isn't relevant today? Awareness is the first step to that. So, it's like, if you didn't feel safe as a child, right? And what happens is if you don't like tap into that and like, okay, well, that was something from before, but 3 decades later, I'm still not feeling safe as an adult. You're going to attract certain people and circumstances that are going to hold that true because you want to be right, but being right, in this instance costs us a lot. It costs us always looking behind ourselves when we know that if you really think about today, are you really safe? Yes, we put ourselves in safe environments. We live in a safe home. We live in a safe family. We have a safe job environment. I mean, and if you don't, you need to get out. But I'm just saying, like, it's not what it was when we were small children and the programs that we brought into our adult life that possibly may not be serving us. So that's the P in pause. The
Okay.
A is acknowledging and accepting, fully accepting as what is without any resistance or judgment. Okay. So acceptance isn't resignation. Things did happen to all of us. Stuff happened to me that was horrible stuff. So what happens is something happened and I put a story on there, right? I created a story. And the story is made out of words, right? So we had to be careful about what stories we're carrying into our adult life because they're really just made of words and words are things that we've created. So we actually can rewrite that story, right? So my story when I was a young girl is that, somebody called me a liar about something. It was very tragic for me. And I'm not a liar. I was telling the truth. And so anytime that somebody would, just kids call you liars and, whatever, like you're not telling the truth, I would like rage. Like, how dare you call me a liar? Right. Because it was very traumatic for me. And I'm like, I'm telling the truth and I would fight for, what was right, but I realized that I don't need to live there anymore because in my truth, I am an honest person. And that was back then when I was 11, 12, 13 years old, right? I didn't need to carry that forward. So, really taking a look at that because, you know, the way we perceive ourselves is the way we're going to actually walk in the world, right? And a lot of how we perceive ourselves is in truth. So, we really want
Yeah.
to unravel that.
How big do you think this step is for people, this acknowledgement? Because I mean, I know first you gotta perceive and kind of understand the patterns, but how big do you think this step of the pause process, this acknowledgement and acceptance is to be able to move through a stuck place?
I think just to acknowledge it and just let it be where it is, that it actually did happen. And, it happened the way it happened because it happened, right? I mean, we can't go back and
Mhm.
change the past, but we can like just like acknowledge that that happened but we don't really need to live there anymore, right? And,
Yeah.
people usually need help with that to get out of that space, right? So, I don't need to live there anymore. I mean, there's still some things from my childhood that still pop its ugly head up, and I'm like, you know what? When am I going to get over this, right? That I need to
Yeah.
unravel it a little bit more, and I'm like, that's not true anymore, right? So, I think that, through challenges, through our coaching program, giving people certain challenges, that they opt into, that, sometimes it's just a conversation you have to have with someone. I know a story in my literally just story, I've been for 4 decades, I had the story wrong because of something I thought I heard, right? And I did hear, or I might have been told it. I don't know, but I've been holding on to that. And then I just heard from a family member that that's not how they saw it at all. I'm like, well, how did you see that? Well, that's not what happened at all. And I'm like, whoa, I've been carrying around this thing thinking it happened this way. And now I'm being told 4 decades later that it's a little bit different. And I'm like, wow, that just changed my perception of that person a little bit, right? In a
Yeah.
good way. I mean, it wasn't bad. I accepted it. But I'm just saying, like, some things can be done and some things you can just go, I don't, let's just rewrite, let's just move forward and create a different chapter and a different
Yeah. So
narrative.
yeah, but you have to be able, I guess it sounds like, to have some acknowledgement. You don't have to go back and live there. You just have
No,
to, what I'm hearing you say is
just
acknowledge that to be
acknowledge it
able to
because
move
it did
forward.
happen, We don't want to just, try to pretend nothing happened, but like it happened. And then let's just see if we can, break free from that, get a breakthrough from that so we can move into a different place. And that's where the you comes in, which is unwind, untangle, and kind of understand it, right? Because we need to separate what is fact and fiction, right? Like, what if this belief isn't true? That's a question. And what is this situation trying to teach me today? Because the space between a reaction and response is really where the real power comes in, right? That gap between, I'm triggered and I'm going to react, right? I help people to go, let's interrogate, let's have some fun with this. What's going on in here, right? Like, why is it tripping you up so much? And then if you
Yeah.
can break
Well,
free from that, right, that's a totally different way of seeing things, a different set of lenses, right?
yeah. And I would say, I don't know about you, but I think there's so many times. I know we're going to talk about and this might be getting ahead of time, ahead of sort of, I
That's
know
okay.
me and you talked about earlier subconscious, and I wonder if that's the S. Is that the S or is it something different?
No, it's not the S, but however,
Okay.
I will talk to you how we can go backwards, but the S is basically like shifting, like reframing the old belief, so it's a little bit of that, right? Reframing the
Okay.
old belief into an empowering truth, right? So,
Yeah.
like, if you weren't safe as a child, right? I mean, when you tap into someone and they're like, "Really, I don't feel safe." But, like, is it true today that you're not safe, right? Like I said earlier. And so the question would be, you know, if it's not true that you're not safe, how would you show up knowing you're safe? What would the world look like and how would you show up every day if you truly knew that you were safe?
Yeah. You know what? I'd be jumping off of cliffs and bouncing on,
Yes, right? Like, so the question would be, what story am I telling myself right now? Again, we go back and we go, is it rooted in truth or past conditioning? Because if it's rooted in past conditioning, then you don't need to like hang on to that anymore. We just ask people, it's like, so once they really get to tap into like, wow, that's from before and I've been hanging on to that all this time. Some people don't know. I just worked with a woman today and her message was she was a burden. And that's because that's what don't raise your voice, don't, walk on eggshells, be small, hide, isolate, just don't be a burden, don't be a burden. And she carried that into her adult life, right? And she's, 4 decades later, almost five, and still doing that in the corporate world, right? Pregnant, hiding in the conference room when she doesn't feel well or she has morning sickness, hoping that nobody's going to notice in case she loses her job, right? Doesn't want to be a burden to anybody, right? So you see how she carries that into her adult world. But like, had she been able to go, that's not true. I'm not a burden. I'm a professional woman. I have a high level career, right? I have a voice. I've changed the culture, whatever it is for her. She's not a burden at all. It's just a story that she's held on to in herself, right? And so once you can let that go, and I was like, so if it's not true that you're a burden and you're quite the opposite, like, how would you show up tomorrow when you go to work? And she literally couldn't, it's so buried in your subconscious, right? And I would ask her even more questions, 3 or 4 more questions, and I asked in all different ways, but she kept trying to go back to telling me about, her dad and having I kept asking her again, and eventually she started laughing. She's like, "Oh my God. I'm so ingrained in that story that I'm not even hearing what you're really saying." And then when that happened, I'm like, "So it's true you're not a burden, right? So tomorrow I want you to start living as if you matter and you have great value."
Yeah. Yeah. But I guess to your point is sometimes these things are so
Oh,
buried way down deep that you're operating out of that belief or story or truth that you believe is a truth. And it may not be actually rooted in truth. It may just be, like you said earlier, past conditioning that's really,
yeah. Yeah. So really it's just doing some different exercises, giving people challenges to do that proves to them that there's evidence that it's not true today, right?
yeah.
Evidence. Like, so, yeah, and there's all kinds of different things, fun things that you can do, right? So people opt in or they don't. If they don't want to do it, then we untangle why, and then we find out why they don't want to do it. And eventually they do it because, it's
Yeah.
just, I,
When you
it,
uncover the resistant
when
part
you
or what
unhear
is
the
this?
resistance, then all of a
It's
sudden,
maybe
I
that
still want
whole
you to,
belief
yeah,
still holding on to it. Yeah. I
yes,
don't
yes,
wanna
yes.
let it go. I don't wanna let it go. Well, and you know what? In my experience, for myself and then other people that maybe I've supported along the way, I think sometimes we hang on to things because it actually may have gotten us to where we are today, and it may have served us
Yeah,
for a period of time to keep us safe or get us to the next place or
yeah,
help us survive through life, but when it's not serving us anymore, and to your point of the example where you're kind of removing yourself from situations or places because you don't want to feel that you're a burden, then it really is limiting your life in ways you don't even understand
so true.
consciously.
So
Yeah.
true. Yeah. Yeah, we just get stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get stuck. So, and then what happens most of the time is women isolate themselves out of fear, you know, and fear is a way of masquerading as logic because
Yeah.
as
Oh, maybe
human
we should
beings,
dive into that. I know we didn't get to the E yet, but fear of masquerading
well,
as
the E is
logic.
basically just
Yeah.
empowering. It's a lot of
Okay.
expanding and empowering and embracing, basically, right? So it just takes practice, right? It's literally like having the power to continue to move forward and, know that, this once you take things out of the subconscious mind and make them conscious, you really can't throw them back in the subconscious mind anymore. Something will pop up and just actually to be really kind to yourself when it does pop up, go, "Oh, I know what that is. Let me just work through that." Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because now you know. You're not on autopilot anymore. So, but that's what the E is, right?
Okay. Well, let's go back. This fear masquerading as logic, because I don't know about you, but I do see this. I mean, we can logic ourself into
Oh god.
away from,
Like
all the
yes,
things.
yes. I've coached so many high achieving women who look all put together, right, on the outside, but internally we're just stuck in this loop of some doubt, fear of judgment, fear of being too much. I know the loop because I did it for many, many, many years. One moment that stands out is when I was considering hosting my first retreat just recently, and I had the vision, the heart, the message, and I almost didn't launch it because I told myself, who do you think you are, right? Like, totally self sabotaging myself.
Well, I mean, this
Um,
podcast, I mean, whenever I first did it, I had gotten all the stuff set up like it sounds like you did. And I had to have a group of other people that, thankfully supported me along the journey. And they're like, Christy, before the end of the day, you're going to record the first episode. And I'm like, but nobody's going to want to listen to this, and here we are, we were
I
talking
know,
earlier,
and here you are 3 years
100
later,
plus
right?
episodes later. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but, it causes us to play really small, right? You know,
hmm
um, but pausing, and that's the other thing about taking a pause, right? It's like, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. Let me just take a moment out for myself, right? Let me just challenge that belief a little bit. What if it works? You know, the shift in the perspective, from fear to having faith, right? It just changes everything. And now I've created spaces where women don't have to hide behind fear anymore because just like a flower, like a rose that's just like, it's all here, not opened up yet, right? And so this is us. These are our precious beings that we were, born as precious people. And somewhere along the way, we decided we weren't precious anymore. And that's because, here we are, like small, and then all of a sudden we have hurt and hurt and hurt and, all this stuff that just piles on top of us. It's accumulation of just stuff, programs, people telling us, what to do, how to do it, da 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 da. We don't even really know ourselves when we leave the home, but then when we start like letting go of stuff, right? So really like letting the constraints go, then the light starts coming out just little by little by little by little. And then all of a sudden you live in your true essence with peace and total fulfillment, right? By just doing little things. It's not like these big things. That's not how, things, that's not how you manifest the next chapter in your life. It's like, what is it you really want? Let's just dive in and take one thing. Let's just do one thing tomorrow. Okay. That actually should moves the needle, and then like see yourself, right? Having that thing, right? And we're going to move in that direction. And then it just comes together and it happens. And so that's the manifestation I'm talking about, not the kind that, you put, you know, little notes all over your computers and your walls and stuff, and say stuff every single day. You have to actually take action, right? For a different outcome.
I mean, Karen, I 1,000% agree. There ain't nothing in my life that, I mean, I'm not saying that I haven't had some vision for some things. And I'm not saying things have happened like serendipitously,
Yeah.
where like I really feel the universe is aligning and working in my favor. And I didn't do too much for it to happen. Right. But you're right. But you still have to do some stuff, like adjust your perspective so you can notice it when it comes flying at you. But yeah, nothing that in my life has really happened overnight. It's been small choices over a period of time that have really led to a certain outcome. But I'm curious for you in your own life, because when you're talking about this fear to faith, what do you think in your life was the biggest shift for you to move from fear to faith, or maybe even something that's happened in the past? I mean, it sounds like the retreat was one of them, but maybe something else that comes to mind that really
Oh,
helped that you
yeah.
moved through.
Okay. So it was my last job the person I worked for last, I made a decision to switch companies in the mortgage field, and it brought me to North Carolina. There was an agreement for a few things, and I trusted the process, and I made I made the move, and then I fought for everything that I was said to have for 2 years, and I got to the point where it just so broke my soul almost,
Mm.
that I felt so stuck that I didn't know what direction to move. I mean, I literally was stuck. And one of my employees was with me and he said, I've never seen you like this before. I've never seen you be able to just rationalize and fix anything. Like you're just so good at it. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm like, this is really like, got me. So I called one of my mentors and we talked about it. And one of the things that he brought forward to me was my kids. He said, if your kid was over there and you told him what you wanted, but you stayed on over here, like, what are you telling your kids? I'm like, wow, that just struck a chord, right? And then it was like, okay, so just go in and then you're ready to quit? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, go in and have a 3-minute conversation and then leave. No more than 3 minutes. And then that's it. And I did. I went in and I said, listen, I just need to let you know that I'm going to be moving, out of this space and I'm going to be starting in my consulting business, my coaching business. So I just want to let you know, I want to thank you for the time that I was here. And it started out really nice and then it ended up really not nice, but I kept my composure because I didn't let that type of thing, I didn't react to it anymore. It didn't trigger me anymore. And I left so empowered that I actually packed up my car and I left for a week to the mountains, got a little cabin by the creek, and I literally didn't have a cell phone. And I was able to take a whole week off and just
You're
really
able to take a big
start
old pause.
big old pause. That was the biggest pause I ever took. And I was able to really design the next chapter of my life, what I really wanted to do. And one of the things I knew was that I did not want any other women to ever feel like this. Like if I
Mhm.
could teach them, you know, how to really tap into their true self and the alignment that I had of what I wanted to create and what I would have done, somebody kept bumping up against me and knocking me down. And I allowed that to happen because I didn't have a voice. I didn't stand up for myself in this environment. I asked for help for like so many different people and nobody would help me. And so I was like, okay, these aren't my people anymore. Right. That was a huge change for me. And that's why I'm here today, doing this work. And that's why I took this pause and I just put a framework around it so I could help other women.
Yeah. I love that. The listeners have heard my story before, so I won't go back into it, but I can remember there was a time too, the same thing happened to me. I was in a place, I kept on feeling like I'm fighting, 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 stuck, stuck, stuck. And it wasn't until people asked me, some of my mentors asked me some very pivotal questions that made me reconsider what was possible for me and be able to be brave enough to no longer let fear be, the shackle, I guess, that
Yeah.
held me in a place where, I kept on trying to be a voice for change, and it was falling on deaf ears. And I think that is sometimes, not that people have to do anything drastic, but I kind of did the same thing, left, moved my daughter and rescue animals to a different place and started from scratch. But
Yeah.
it ended up being the best thing that I ever decided to do. But I think we have to get to those places where we just have to say, like, this discomfort or this fighting, I shouldn't feel like I'm always fighting up against something. There has to be a better aligned way of living. And not that everything I'm sure in your path has just been all sunshine and rainbows
Oh,
as you're
no.
taking
Oh,
action towards the goals,
heck no.
but it's been worth it. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'd say it'd been worth it.
Oh, it's been totally worth it. And then, you bring up a good point of fear, right? So, when you think about fear, right? Fear is actually something we pull from the past. Because really, do we really know what's going to happen an hour from now? I don't know what's going to
Nope.
happen an hour from now. I know it's going to happen a day from now, but I want to live my life, in fulfillment and peace. So, we just don't know. And so if we really can go, well, in uncertainty, we really don't know. We have no certainty of what's going to happen. There's pure possibilities. But if we're not open to it, all these opportunities that are coming to us, we're never going to see them because we have a
Yeah.
different lens on, a lens of like being small or a lens of being a burden or a lens of, all these things, right? Not mattering. I really work with women to be really authentic because authenticity for me means no longer, shape shifting to be palatable. It means I'm not shrinking my voice to make other people comfortable or staying in roles that no longer fit just because they once did. I am not the person I was yesterday, right? And so I don't want to live as I was yesterday because I'm learning so much more, right? Even being on this podcast with you, it's the courage to live and lead from truth and not performance, right? But to live that way, we have to shed some deep rooted beliefs, that we have to earn our worth from, whatever performance, like doing, right? Saying yes to everybody, right? Or that it's safer to be silent, like the lady I was talking about, that we both can have a softness and a power, a really good power behind us because authenticity is born when you stop asking, what do they want from me? And, for
That's good.
me, yeah, and for me, it's why, who did God create me to be? I mean, that's the work that I do inside my Sanctum program is helping women return to their original version, the precious being, that we came into this world as. And then somewhere along the line, we decided to take on all this responsibility that really isn't ours to take on. It's like carrying a backpack of about 30 hammers every single day. You know, we need to start offloading some of those things that we don't need to take responsibility. I think that women have taken on a lot of masculine kind of tendencies and roles a little bit because we feel like we just keep going, take on more responsibility when really we need to like not carry those and go and say, no, I need your help. I mean,
Yeah.
what is,
Well, and Karen, I know this is for all women, but I'm actually a single mom myself, and I can remember throughout the years, carrying a whole bunch of different things
ah,
because not because necessarily I wanted to, but because I had to, right? Because there was this is the path, this is what we've got to do.
yep.
But I think over time, you have to learn to let go of some of those hammers when it's no longer needed for you to carry it anymore. And how do you help women learn how to let go of some of those hammers that they've been carrying
Well,
for maybe too long?
Yeah, too long, right? Well, one of the things we can do is put a backpack on them with a bunch of hammers and say, "Carry that around for 6 hours, see how that feels," right?
Actually, that physical, actually action probably maybe make us all
Yeah, it does
reconsider what
work,
we're
it
hanging on
does
to.
work. But I
Yeah,
would really look in the eye of the woman and say, "You're not broken, you're not buried under expectations and roles and survival patterns, but, your truth is in there and your voice is in there. So what voice do you want us all to hear? It's not the old programming, right? Because that's not really for the future.
yeah,
And so, we weren't meant to hustle our way into being worthy. We were born with it, right? We have it inside of us. And we don't need to become anything. You just need to return to who you are. The woman that you've been waiting for is already inside of you, and she's just been waiting for you to like pause long enough to hear her again. And so
yeah,
that's really what the pause is for, to really hear you. What is it you want? What is it you want to let go of? What are you scared of? And what's the worst thing that could possibly happen if you do make a forward motion in that direction? Like, people may support you that you're scared, thinking that they're not going to support you. Now, I won't say that as I've grown and I've gotten more and more success over the years and, the different things that I've done, that I haven't lost some friends, that some family members have, maybe got a little jealous or something, that there were people in my life for a season that I really had to let go, that I haven't had to be alone for a while, creating things that I've been creating. Those things do happen. I'm an entrepreneur, and so entrepreneurship, it can be hard at times. But I get to hear me. I get to hear what I want to create and where I'm going tomorrow, and I want to be open to the opportunities that come to me. If I'm keeping myself small, I'm never going to see them.
yeah. Well, and I love how you just shared that, and I also love how I was thinking about when you were talking about that, how you shared earlier, like, what if it works? What if I learn to listen to me, and what if I can live an aligned life with peace and joy? It
Yeah,
doesn't mean that it's not gonna be devoid of challenges or uncomfortable feelings or pain at times, but what if it actually does work and I can live a
I
life
know,
that's
right?
authentic to me, you know? Wow, who wouldn't want that? I mean, sign me up, right?
Yeah, if we talk about the neuroscience behind, ambition women pushing themselves past their limits, we're wired to have a survival system, as you know. The brain's designed to keep us safe, not fulfilled, right? And you got to remember, the mind is the mind, the brain is the brain, it's a container, and our mind is our mind, which is how our words and our stories and how we perceive ourselves, right? And so, for high achieving women, it's often running that loop of, proving, performing, perfecting, especially if somewhere along the way we picked up the belief that love, worth, and safety is tied to all the achievements that we do, especially women in the corporate world. Okay. So when women push past their really limits, it's not because she's broken, it's because her nervous system's trained to equate rest with danger or rejection, typically.
Mm,
So the neuroscience tells us that early emotional patterns get, encoded in the brain with that conditioning. It's achievement that brought validation, or it's security in childhood. The brain says, keep going. It's the only way to belong, right? We want belonging and community. But, it's like a cage, that over functioning, becomes like a cage, and we're stuck in a cage and we just want to get out and we don't know how to get out. And so, we just kind of like get complacent, right?
yeah. Well, I don't know about you, but anytime I've ever overfunctioned in my life, which I hate to tell you guys, even though I do this podcast, I find myself falling in the trap more than most. But the truth is, once you really start you are in an overfunctioning way, it's so hard to re-regulate your nervous system to be okay. Well, we're back to the pause and the stillness, to be
Yep.
okay in the stillness, because there's part of you that continues to, it's so programmed to say, if you're still for too long, like you said, there might be a threat to safety or your survival. So,
Yeah.
or you
Yeah.
might get left behind, whatever the messages are that are in there. And so you just keep going. And I've seen it, I don't know about you, but I think I've seen it so many times, especially with women who carry so many roles, for them to really be able to rest and not have that associated with that rejection, or something's gonna negative is gonna happen if I take a rest. So reprogramming
Yeah, but
that can.
you don't know. Again,
Mhm.
it's a story that we're telling ourselves. We don't know. What if you do get rejected, and what if that's the one thing that actually is in your favor? What
Yeah.
if they did you a favor, you know?
Well, thinking of a story, I was talking to somebody that I go to the gym with the other day, and they were talking about how, they were getting a lot of messages, maybe while they were on vacation, and it was like, I can't do anything about this right now. And the challenge is like, well, what if you didn't
Oh,
respond? Or what if you left your phone somewhere? Like you said, you left your phone, you went to the woods, nobody can contact you. I think sometimes we also forget that things can keep on happening in the world, and but it's that fear that sometimes keeps you from really being able
yeah, or
to put boundaries or turn
what
it
if
off.
you, like, left a voicemail and said, "Hey, you know what? I'm going out of town with my family for a well-needed vacation. I'll be back on Monday. Leave me a
Mhm.
message. I'll be returning calls on
Yeah.
Monday." Like, what's the worst thing that's gonna happen?
I know, but sometimes it's just putting it out there and asking yourself the question, right? Because in your mind you might think it is the worst, but it really, like you said.
But what's the fear? Like, that's the thing, is
Yeah.
what's the fear? So if you're in sales, typically the fear is like, "I'm gonna miss a big client." No, you're not. You weren't meant to have that client then. Wasn't yours to have. Take the vacation.
Yeah.
No.
Listen, I'm trying to re-enter my vacation living life is what I'm trying to get there, Karen. Like, oh yeah, what's the worst that could happen if I take a day off? Nothing. 2 days off? Nothing.
Nothing.
2 weeks off?
Nothing.
Nothing. It'll be fine, you know?
Nothing, literally, like, there's 104 days we already take off if you don't work weekends, right? And you're gonna put in the other things in there. Nothing's gonna happen. I tell people, you don't need to work past 5 o'clock. At 5 o'clock, you need to go home to your family. You need to leave a voicemail that says, "Hey, if you've reached me after 5 o'clock, I'll be returning to the office at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, and I'd be happy to give you a call. Leave me a message." Like, people will honor that. You teach
Yeah.
people how to treat you, right?
Well, and I'm glad you just said that, and that's hard, right? Because people think that they're worried at times about how other people are gonna respond, and there goes that respond or reaction or rejection or whatever. And I 1,000% agree. You have to teach people how to value you have to value your time first
Yeah. Yeah.
and your life first, and then you teach other people how to also, value that as well. But
Well, and if
it's hard to
people give
change.
you a hard time, Christy, then those are people you probably don't wanna work with anyway. So let
Can
me
you say
tell
that
you,
louder for the people in the back,
I
Karen?
said if people don't respect that, your time with your family, the time for yourself, right? Then those are probably people that you don't wanna have in your world anyway. Those aren't your people.
Yeah,
They really aren't, So it goes back to, why aren't we respecting ourself, our time, and our family? Worrying about a phone call we might get, or so it's just questions. So it's these questions we ask ourselves, right? What's the fear? Like, if someone gives me a hard time because I didn't answer the phone at 7 o'clock at night, I'm like, I'm sorry.
yeah. Well, and I think it's also about what's about you and what's about the other person. Like, are you projecting your own things on to
Yeah, I mean, when I
my
speak,
life?
if I am all scared and nervous and all, da 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 da, I'm literally like focused on me. And as soon as I know that it's just about the people out there and it's one person that I could talk to and make a difference, then there's no, then you're good.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you gotta figure out, like, are you just focused on you, or are you really focused on, the people that you're serving? So
That
yeah.
might be that S, that shifting. We're shifting.
Yes, that shifting. Oh, and
Yeah.
I'm a giver by trade. So, by default. And so I attract a lot of takers. And so, I really had to like look at, we have all a little bit of a taker and giver. But I really had to look at that and go, wow, took a step back when I went on that week long little retreat for myself, little pause. And I'm like, wow. And I think about everybody, I can only think of like one person that I would want in my world, and I'm like, wow, I was surrounded by all of that all the time, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
And
no
so then
wonder
you
why
had to but that pause helped you realize, I guess what I'm hearing you say is that, that's not the world I wanna live in anymore.
no, and I literally had to like really like, unattach myself to some people.
Mhm.
And if they call, I'll say hi and I hope you're doing really well. But I'm just not, I'm really, really busy or whatever I'll say to them, doesn't matter. But I'm not willing to like not be true to myself and who I am, to spend time with people that, they're just not my people. They're not in my world anymore. And I wish
What do
them
you think is
well.
the
I don't wish them any harm. I just wish them all the blessings in the world. But like, it's just not, they were in my life for a season.
Yeah. What do you think is the cost of not being true to yourself?
Oh, being exhausted, like I mean, like, oh, I can't even imagine anymore being in a world that everybody else tells me what to do all the time. That you have no like peace. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a while since I've been there. I mean, like I didn't like going to the office. I didn't like, fearful that someone would walk in my office that I want to talk to. I isolated myself, at the time. I stopped going to the office and started working at home then I was really isolated. It just it's you lose a piece of your soul.
Yeah.
I go back to like we're precious human beings. We're here for a reason, right? To do good in this world. And like I don't want my soul to be, depleted for any reason. And so I'm really, really clear on the energy when I walk into a room, right? And then I give myself permission if the energy is not in alignment with where I'm going or who I am. I will give the time, but then I will actually excuse myself. So even when I was in board meetings, in the past, I would be like, if something wasn't like, I'm like, I just need a break for a second. I'll be right back. I'm like, okay, let me ground myself because I'm ready to wring all their necks. Then I'm like, okay, let me come back. I'm gonna be okay, right? So
Yeah.
I think, you just need to take a journey inside and figure out who you are. What do you really, really, really want in this next chapter of your life? What do you really want? And then go for it. Like,
Yeah.
people think that they can't have it. I'm like, you can have it all. You really can. Like, we just got to figure out what's stopping you.
Yeah. And what's the next step? That's it.
What's the
What's
next
stopping
step?
you and what's the next step?
That's
Well,
right.
Karen, speaking of next steps, if somebody is like, "You know what? I might need Karen's help to figure out the path ahead." How can people connect with you or find out more about
Oh,
you or
well, they can find me on Instagram on just my name, Karen Bartholomew. There's two accounts. And so it's literally just my name altogether, not the, underscore. That's my old account. I'm also on Facebook, Karen Bartholomew. You can find me on my website at karenbartholomew.com. But if you go on Instagram and you DM me, or you can call me on my phone number, which you can put in the notes. And yeah, just reach out anyway, or they can get a hold of you and you can get a hold of me.
Yeah, that sounds great. Well, listen, Karen, if you were to go back to younger you and maybe give yourself one piece of advice that now you've learned along the way of now being in a more aligned, authentic life, what is one thing that maybe you'd want to impart to younger you if younger you would listen? I don't know. Younger me sometimes questionable if I would have listened to myself today, but
I wish a wise woman would have asked me how I was doing
mm,
and where I wanted my life to go. I wish I
yeah.
had somebody that cared enough to really ask. Because I think that's what I've missed all these years is really having a community of people that asked me how I was doing. Because I'm always the one that's the doing
Yeah, the giver, yeah.
giver.
Asking how other people.
But I wish I had a mentor. Because,
Yeah.
I had my last retreat, I had women from 25 all the way to 77 at the retreat. And it was interesting. The people in their 70s were like, I wish I had this when I was in my 20s. That's what everybody says that. I wish. It's so
Yeah.
amazing to see women in their 20s actually getting this, information and being able to really create something amazing for themselves. Right.
Yeah,
And we
because
did it.
nobody teaches this stuff. I mean,
Nobody.
I didn't learn this in school. I don't remember learning it in college
Nope.
really, and I even went to a helping profession type career, Karen. And we learned about how to help other people, but it really didn't talk a lot about how to help yourself.
Never. It's
Do
all
you know
about
what I
other
mean?
people all the time.
Yeah.
And we learned that by doing chores at home, right? And then the babysitting, and then the chores and the babysitting, and then we added something else on the job, right? And then like, getting to where we need to get to, but whatever it is, it's all kinds of stuff,
And it
right?
just compiles.
We just add and add and add, and somehow we decided we could just keep adding stuff on there. And I'm like, hello, wait a minute.
All the
I could just
hammers.
I can just get a housekeeper and
That's
like
right.
free some of my time up, right? You
That's
know?
right.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah.
Well, Karen, I just appreciate you so much for not only coming on today, but honestly, then going on your own journey, realizing what helped you realign where you wanted to be in life. And then you've spent a large part of your time being able to how to empower other women, specifically on how to discover their true self along this wild, wonderful thing called life, the journey that we're all on. So thank you for coming today, sharing some of this stuff with us. I know that I was writing down notes, girl, so I'm learning right along, and you gave
Good,
me some
good.
things to really shift in my thinking and how to think differently about that. So thank you.
You're
And
welcome.
if you are listening, y'all know I try to take one thing that I heard and just leave it with you for today. And here it is. And this is what Karen said. Guess what? If you forgot, you are a precious human being born with worthiness. And maybe just take a moment today to pause and return to who you are. Until next time.
That's all for today on Inspiring Possible. If you found a little inspiration today, please go on over to iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you tune in to listen to leave us a comment and rate us. Also, make sure and link up with me at inspiringpossible.com to get the free Dream It, Write It, Do It workbook. And don't forget to follow us on social media and share this with anyone who needs to be inspired. Remember, if you can believe it, it's possible.